a poorly constructed union of the Matsura clan and the treacherous Shoni Yasumichi had tried and failed to strike a killing blow to the Otomo. In fact, the opposite was closer to the truth. The surviving Matsura retainers were now sworn to Otomo Yoshiaki, and the Shoni's main army was in tatters, with Yasumichi himself having fallen in battle to a hail of matchlock fire. His followers would now have to prepare to continue the war he started, for all knew Yoshiaki would not be giving them a second chance. But further south, a distraction arose when the Shimazu clan threatened to invade southern Bungo, despite their alliance with the Otomo. Only the Shiga clan, a long-standing Otomo vassal, stood in their way. Neither of us can attend. The punishment of the rebels is not complete, and we shall need the skill of both of us to carry out my vengeance. Yoshishige shall take charge of our response. This will be a difficult negotiation, my lord. I understand you wish to grant Yoshishige some experience, but a lighter matter may be more suitable. You are rather fond of giving me advice, aren't you? As if I haven't already considered my actions down to the last detail. This matter is as light as matters come. I shall tell him that we cannot afford a war with Shimazu. I shall additionally tell him that we cannot afford to lose control of our border castle. That is a negotiating position that reaches an easy conclusion. Hello there and welcome back to Barbarian Masters. So while we wait to see what our decision to break ties with our vassal is going to yield, we'll first need to take a look at the Shoni clan, who are still a force to be reckoned with, and they are on the warpath as you can see. They can take North Chukuzen from us relatively easily. We can't stop them now, we'll have to just auto-resolve this and they can take it, and then focus on trying to hunt them down and finish them off. The risk is that they'll just walk on and keep doing this to all of our territories, but if they stand and fight, then we should have a decent chance. Our force, although damaged, is of a higher quality than theirs. Now you can see the specific arrangement of what's happened here actually turns out to be very favourable. For whatever reason, the Shoni army walked outside of the castle to do something and now seems to be coming back. Now it's still in reinforcement range of the castle, but that does mean that if we can take the castle before they arrive in a siege assault battle, then we can do the trick we've done a couple of times in this campaign already, where we can use the capture point to defeat the forces external to the castle, and Chikaharu is being sent out with a small force to attempt just that. The balance bar doesn't look good because the Shoni army is pretty powerful. It will easily defeat him if we end up fighting them, so the key thing here is of course to not fight them. There's only 3 units inside the castle, so hopefully our 8 units will be able to overwhelm them and find a circumstance where we can take the capture point. We'll start by attacking the castle from 2 sides. If we can distract the units inside with one of the attacks, then the one coming from the other side will definitely be able to take the point. So this is always a nice idea if you're planning to just steal the capture point from a smaller force. And while that happens, the Shoni's main force will be coming onto the field and marching towards us. So we need to do this as quickly as we can. The first into the castle will be dismounted cavalry units, and they're actually going to have a pretty bad time because the enemy samurai and ashigaru here suddenly swamp them just as they come over the wall. And these light cavalry aren't particularly effective in melee. They're okay, they kind of counter samurai, but inferior to the enemy samurai, of course. So while they fight, we'll just have to hope that the fact they've bought us plenty of leeway to just bring in the rest of our units for free will make their sacrifice worthwhile. Kobyukawa himself coming over to oversee the capturing of the Tenshu, thus freeing up this unit of Yari Ashigaru to go and join the fight, with the fight's already being lost by the looks of things. The help of our general's abilities is keeping our men in the fight, but the enemy's katana samurai are more than enough to do the damage. They've also got some Yari Ashigaru of their own in there. We're joining the fight from behind. that may do some damage, but really it's just going to be the countdown timer that we focus on in this battle. Chikaharu launches the flag up the flagpole there, very strange, and that's the timer ran down. It takes a few seconds after 0 actually to end the battle, just to give you a little bit of a psych out, and there it is, heroic victory. We've captured the castle with relatively small losses considering the total size of the enemy force that was available to defend the castle. Most of it not taking part in the fight, of course, so the losses on both sides minor, but we will be taking the castle for ourselves, and our cavalry in a very damaged state, and cavalry takes a very long time to replenish in this mod. So that's a little bit of a shame. However, we have succeeded in our initial objective. North Chikuzen is back under our control, and the Shoni army is forced to retreat, having utterly failed to hold the territory they captured. So they will be ashamed by that, but perhaps more so by this move, because Yoshiaki can simply capture South Chikuzen again, with Chikaharu actually coming in to reinforce because his castle is so close there. And because the Shoni weren't in their own territory when their clan fell, by the rules of Shogun 2, it gets rid of all the forces left. So if I had done this the other way around, taking South Chikuzen first, when I took North Chikuzen, the Shoni army would still be alive and given a chance to attack us to see if it could keep their clan going. But this specific arrangement means we don't have to fight their army at all. That's absolutely great. So now northern Kyushu is secured, the Shoni have been punished, and we've got all their territory. Logging all details of a voyage is one of those barbarian traditions that seems a little obsessive. However, today there is news to write of. The closer news first. We stopped at 3 villages today collecting supplies owed to us by the Matsura. At each, the stories told were the same. The Shoni have been crushed. Several days prior, the news was that Shoni were freely conquering our lands. The situation, it seems, has been turned around before I could even arrive to see it firsthand. It can only be the work of Lord Otomo. He seems to have found both wisdom and fortune in staggering volume these recent years, to the good and ill of all Kyushu. An amazing man, a hero by most measures, but rather more painted as a demon by the rest of the land. That is where the other news comes in. Lord Otomo may brag of his success, but there are more successful lords out there still. Lords who have a not-so-heavy reputation, too. One day, I must imagine, the best of the warlords will use their free excuse to attack us, and this very ship shall be first among their desires. To mention such fears is absolutely out of the question, officially. Instead, we sail for Nagasaki to meet our lord and take the quite comfortable option of surrendering our future to his judgment. We're going now to put a bit of consideration into what's been happening elsewhere in Japan while we've been fighting our wars. We learn of the existence of the Takeda clan, and perhaps more importantly, we learn that it's very powerful. We can see its territory on the map and see that it's taken quite a few regions already, and most likely that trend will continue because the strength it gains from these regions will allow them to take more. The Mori clan, a little bit closer to home, have also started doing a similar sort of thing, conquering their way east by the looks of things. The only point to remember about all this is that these large factions hate us and at any time may be able to come and attack us. They've got plenty of casus belli thanks to our religious decisions, so we just need to keep an eye on the eastern situation and make sure some gigantic clan doesn't suddenly appear to strike us down. Now, moving on several turns after a period of consolidation and rebuilding our forces, we're going to go to our next objective, our next strategic moves in the campaign. It's going to be an attack on 2 different islands controlled by the Goto and Tanegashima clans to the northeast and south of Kyushu. Both of them have trade nodes, so taking control of these islands will allow us to very easily take control of the nodes, which gives us a large income. So that's our main motivation. The Goto are going to be first on the list. They've given us some hassle before by refusing to trade with us, so we already have a bit of a bad reputation with them, although it is worth noting that the Goto actually are Christian, so we do get a bond with them over that, but it's not going to be enough to stop us from declaring war. They turned down our trade once again, or more accurately, they offered for us to pay for it, which we are absolutely not going to accept, or at least that's our excuse. We're sailing out. Uno and the main fleet are going to pick up Yoshishige and the main army and sail over to take a look at what's going on the enemy's island. We blockade their port without any resistance. They've only got one ship and it's sitting on their trade node there. So that means we can easily set our force to shore and have them get ready for an attack next turn, while the fleet can go on to take out that one ship. It's going to run away in this case. The right decision most likely. So now the trade node is free for us to go and take it. I'll quickly whip up a trade ship over here to go and take it next turn. And really we could end the war right there, because that trade node is worth so much more than the island. The island's almost irrelevant, but we do need to settle the fact we've declared war on the go-to. So we're going to have to fight them at least once to get the war to end. They've got a big army in their castle, but critically, a critical mistake from them, they've got a general standing outside the castle. So that means we can take our main force and advance on that general, and that will draw the rest of their army outside of the castle to come and support him in this battle. It's an equal engagement, but a very nice opportunity for us to completely diminish the enemy's army without having to go for a lengthy siege or a very dangerous siege assault. So looks like it's finally time for some Christian on Christian action. Well done, Lord Kuroda. They were not hard to find, Lord. The people reported his every move to me. His people would not do the same for him were the situation reversed. That is why this must happen. He claims to embrace the heavenly creator, and yet he seems rather more attuned with the acts of the devil. It's obvious when you know why all this happens. Good men and bad men. To be one or the other is not merely fate. It is a matter of the mind and of the soul. And good men, being few in number in times of chaos, must take it upon themselves to put the bad to rest. Of course, yes, my lord, we will not fail you. The Lord is with us today. He watches closely. We will show him who his true servants are. As you can see, the battle started with an extended skirmish. The enemy's archers were focusing on shooting at our archers and our melee line, our second and third line in our formation, while we were using our matchlocks to shoot right at those archers. So the enemy were taking big losses here, and the losses on our side were among the troops that are easier to replace. So in many ways this is a nice trade. So this skirmish went on for some time, and the enemy lost most of their ranged capability. We still had lots of ours, but we aren't going to get to use it all that much more because the enemy's melee line suddenly begins to charge. We'll get a couple of volleys to thin them out, our archers doing the same thing, and then all of our skirmishing troops will have to rush backwards to make sure they're in safe positions as the enemy's infantry arrive. The matchlocks are going to go around the flanks in this battle to try and look for some opportunities to do more damage, since the terrain won't allow them to shoot over our men very well right now. Before that though, our troops are going to have to face the enemy's charge, and they're going to get a pretty decent charge into most of our men. Our units, for the most part, are smaller than the enemy's due to casualties already taken by the enemy's skirmish fire. So now this fight isn't necessarily going to go our way, especially here in the center. You can see our unit is very thin in comparison to the block of enemies now hacking their way through us. A quite dangerous situation. I'm hoping to resolve it with action on the flanks. First, you can see one of the enemy's outflanking units is intercepting one of mine, so no good particularly going to come of that for either side, but the enemy now stuck there will be easy to surround. The main thing I'm focusing on is using my light cavalry to hunt down enemy officers. They have lots of officers in this fight, and those heavy cavalry are going to be nasty units to fight, so we want to bring them down and kill the officers themselves to remove their morale buffing effects. Going to be a bit chaotic though, because there's so many of them, and because the enemy kept pulling units out of the front line to take part in these fights behind the front line. Everything just started spiraling out of control over there, and it became very micro heavy. Meanwhile, in the center, the enemy are about to break through here. Our men were not sufficient to hold back their central charge. The only reason we haven't broken already is that Yoshishige has the stand and fight ability which buffs men nearby, and he's sitting in the center, so our troops don't want to withdraw while he is sitting there looking at them. Our right flank is doing better, managing to defeat some drafted troops, and Matchlocks now coming around to outflank there should help out as well, but the center is pretty much gone. They're starting to attack our ranged units. They're being nice to me here by pulling back their heavy cav from fighting with my archers. That would have been a fight that would have gone well for them if they'd stayed to take it. Instead, they're going to try and fight with our spearmen and our Naginata troops. That's ideal for me. Out on the left flank, there's just a big blobby engagement. We've managed to lock down a couple of the enemy's generals, even using my archers in melee here in an attempt to keep the enemy standing still, just waiting for that opportunity to come up where the enemy general will go down and local units will start to rout. But you can see on the balance bar that we're winning the fight. Despite our heavy losses, we've still got a lot of strength in our ranged and cavalry detachments, and they should now actually be enough to finish off the enemy army without anything special happening. The enemy generals really didn't have a good fight. They were constantly running from our cavalry and our spearmen. Now we've got some free units who are just chasing them down, and the rest of their infantry are going to give up, realizing this fight is lost, so that's going to save what little remains of our melee line there. The rest of the enemy's troops will be destroyed as they escape, of course, because they were totally surrounded by our army. The enemy general, their commanding officer, at least died in the very last moment of the battle, just taking him out in time for the decisive victory. Just what we needed. The price of our victory was enormous losses. We actually lost almost half of the entire army in that fight, and that was really just because of the enemy's frontal attack being so effective against our front line. Our lack of melee troops in this army build really is its weakness, and after every battle we end up in a state where it's going to be hard for us to fight another one. Right now, not going to be a problem because the Goto were decimated by that fight. They lost more than double what we lost, so they have only a few hundred troops remaining. They will be able to replenish and we won't, so the balance of power will slightly shift during the end turn sequence, and we can't set them under siege now to prevent that. However, what we can do is just end the war here and now. As I mentioned, capturing the island isn't all that important now that we've got the trade node. That's what we needed from this war, and the Goto forces are so heavily depleted they will accept a peace deal and become our vassal, which will make us half of the money from the island anyway, so this is a pretty good arrangement, I think, and perhaps most importantly, it allows us to leave right now, because while our main force is out on this island, who knows what's going to happen back in Kyushu. So the deal is agreed upon. I also got a trade agreement with them, but being the go-to, they immediately just cancelled the trade agreement. They really hate trading with us, which was the whole cause of our hostilities in the first place. But we've got their trade node, so that's the important bit of the trade on our side anyway. And you can see the stats there. They just really hate us. I think that's all there is to it. And the fact that we together are a very small group of Christians in a very anti-Christian land doesn't seem to build much camaraderie between our two clans. I guess the fact that we are being very aggressive towards them and our rivals is much more important in this case. So Yoshishige can now get back on the ships and we'll begin sailing back to Kyushu. And after he arrives, we've got some pleasant news for his family. There are certain states of the world that are natural and others artificial. Do you not agree? Yes, Lord. Artificial states can and must end. Natural states know the beginning of time and shall know the full infinity of it. Yes? You'd say it very well, Lord. So the question is this. Is there any value in creating or preserving an artificial relationship? I am not sure, Lord. The answer will come with time. God wishes humans to spread not only His word, but His creation, His children. That is the only project where a temporary effort may yield permanency, for nothing we can create lasts forever, but for the spirits born into our descendants. Do you understand? I understand, Lord. I will serve you to the best of my ability in this regard. We shall begin at once. I depart on business soon. Once winter is over, Yoshiaki's force is mostly back to full strength, so we're ready to march back to the docks in order to head right back onto the ships and sail out for another destination. Another thing we need to focus on right now is the war between our former vassal, the Shiga, and the Shimazu. I thought the Shimazu may have taken them down by now. It appears they haven't. I happen to still have military access with them, so I am allowed to actually move my troops into their territory as a way of investigating what's going on. To start off, we're going to deploy Yoshishige on his first campaign mission, taking our reserve forces slightly to the south to stand on this bridge which separates our lands and those of the Shiga clan. We can't really move much further thanks to our low movement range because we happen to have siege weapons with us, but in the next turn we get a better chance to see what's going on by moving this medium bune to just scout along the coast. We see that there's no Shimazu army in North Hyuga, which I thought was strange because I'd seen the Shiga main force march down there and we can't see the Shiga main force. So I thought maybe there'd been a battle and they'd defeated each other, but right now I wasn't sure. Before we come back to that, I had one other move to make. It's time for Yoshiaki to get on those boats, he's ready to go, and I wanted to go down towards Tanegashima to complete the plan I had mentioned earlier. On the way we've got some pirates to deal with. These Wako pirates can be a problem because they'll attack our trade nodes and they don't want to fight our main fleet, which obviously would just defeat them. But anyway, that aside, as I was moving south I saw this opportunity. The Shimazu home region has been taken by rebels. That means it's free for us to land forces and take it for ourselves, and that's a key opportunity. I'm also using a missionary to slowly spread Christianity down through Kyushu, and that may also prompt further rebellions. So it may indeed be possible to actually slowly destroy our own ally, taking their territory for ourselves. So while that happens, we're first going to do something that ostensibly helps our ally. We're going to offer to join the war against the Shiga. They were willing to go to war with the Uichi in exchange for this, but I ended up renegotiating it and just taking a small amount of money instead because we don't really need any leverage from this, because joining the war actually benefits us. And here's why. Yoshishige can simply move forward and besiege the Shiga's castle, and this proves to be perfect timing. The Shimazu force that I was looking for was actually right there. It's in reinforcement range of the castle, so they were probably about to take it. They're bringing a force that's damaged and experienced. They've clearly taken down the Shiga main force, won that battle, and were about to finish off this clan for themselves. But now, with Yoshishige technically leading the attack, the fate of the Shiga is going to be in our hands instead. We did not expect to see you here, in truth. You suspected our words to be false? I suspected your words to be hungry for coin, but I see you've already spent more on this war than we gave you, so I shall eat my words. You will aid in our attack? Of course, of course. My siege weapons will weaken them before you make your attack. You won't attack with us. My troops are newly raised and unfit. They would only bring your men peril. Besides, this was your campaign. If you are not the one to take the castle, the value of it will be diminished. Very considerate. Well then, begin your attack, and I shall get into position. Good luck. May the Lord be with you. This battle then is going to start with an attack by our fire-projecting mangonels, catapults essentially, firing an explosive cocktail with every shot that sometimes damages the enemy. The specific angles we're firing at make it hard for us to hit enemy units inside the fort, in particular the fort being above the position we're firing from. But now and again we are going to get some lucky shots and do damage to the enemy. In particular, since the enemy have tons of samurai troops, it makes it an effective way to take them down, since their heavy armor and training does no good against balls of exploding fire. Overall though, the attack's success was very limited by that low accuracy. But of course we have plenty of time to wait and just slowly pick away at enemy units with these attacks, because we're not going to do anything until the Shimazu army arrives. So right now we're just doing them a favour, we're just weakening the enemy army before they make their attack, and here they are now coming into the castle some time later. So the Shimazu forces have been on the campaign trail against the Shiga for a while, and this is the final stop to the defeat of the Shiga clan, and we're not going to step in and take the glory from them, of course, but it would be nice if they could very much weaken the Shiga in a battle that is technically, perhaps although they don't realise it, our battle. So if they take the castle, we get it. But the Shimazu have been convinced otherwise by Yoshishige and are fighting very hard to take control of it themselves before we do anything. Now to do so, they'll have to face a lot of powerful troops. The Shiga clan happen to be fielding here no Daichi samurai, the first time we've seen these guys in the campaign. The attack-focused samurai who just slash through everything with heavy charges and then have very high attack values in melee. So they're relatively easy to take down as samurai go, but still, as you kill them, they will kill a lot of your guys at the same time, and that is exactly what's happening to that Shimazu group there. Now I'm switching to the live footage because in that replay we saw a lot of the initial fighting happening inside the castle, but in fact in this battle the fighting took place on the wall at first. In the replay the gate was destroyed by the mangonel fire, but in reality it was not. So there was big casualties for the Shimazu because these contested walls are very hard to take, and they were losing whole units climbing up and trying to fight with the enemy's powerful troops inside. And really, whatever's happening here, it is good for us, because although the Shimazu may be fighting for us in this battle, they are certainly our ally, so if they would just happen to lose most or all of their troops, that would be fine by us. We have enough forces to take the castle at this point without them, because they've inflicted enough damage on the enemy. So it's just a bonus whatever happens here. If the Shimazu lose everything, we win. If the Shiga win everything, we more literally win. And it did seem that the Shiga were gaining an upper hand. You can see some of their forces aren't even fighting right now, and the Shimazu's men are just shattering away. They're actually failing to make this attack, despite actually bringing a much bigger army than what the Shiga had defending on the inside, plus the Shiga already being weakened by our mangonel attack. So that was a little bit surprising, but as I said, we'll still work to our advantage. It does mean we're actually going to have to fight the rest of this battle properly and try and take down all those samurai using our drafted troops if we can. But it also means the Shimazu have lost their main force, so our big rival is now significantly weakened, and Yoshishige has got some explaining to do. There was an array of reasons for a samurai lord to despise the Otomo clan. Perhaps, like the Matsura, they were concerned for the balance of power between the great families. Perhaps, like the Shoni, they wished to have sovereignty at any price. Perhaps, like the Shiga, they had been victim to an unforgivable betrayal. If none of these were true, there were reasons still. Perhaps they found that the prices of goods from China and Korea were being steadily and unilaterally increased. Perhaps they found that zealous monks had burned ancient shrines and erected the crucifix in their place. Or perhaps they simply noted that a huge amount of wealth and power was being concentrated in the hands of a man known for careless rudeness and ruthless cunning. Every family had a reason to hate the Otomo then. Few were willing to look past these reasons. That is it for this episode. Thanks for watching, and also thanks to the OfficiallyDevin patrons for making this video happen. We'll continue to slowly but surely stab our greatest ally in the back in the next episode of Barbarian Masters.